Good afternoon, sir.
Hello.
Sir, we are just waiting for 2 or 3 minutes so that all the participants will join and then we continue. Is it okay, sir?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay,
No
sir.
worries.
The people are already start joining. So in between of that, in between of your introduction, maybe some people or join. And so first of all, welcome, sir, and welcome everyone. And the post session of this conference after lunch, I want to continue our session with our next keynote speaker, Mr. Mufti Muhammad, sir. And Mr. Mufti Muhammad received a PhD degree in information engineering from the University of Padova, Italy in 2011. He is currently serving as an associate professor of computer science with Nottingham Trent University, UK. He is a recipient of the Vice Chancellor Outstanding Research Award 2020 at the NTU, and he was also recipient of the Marie Cruz Postdoctoral Fellowship in 2013. With over 18 years of experience in the industry and academia in India, Bangladesh, Italy, Bellingham, and UK, Dr. Mahmood is an expert in computational intelligence, applied data analysis, and big data technology with a keen focus on healthcare application. He has published over 140 peer-reviewed articles and papers in leading journals and conferences. He is a senior member of IEEE and ACM, a professional member of British Computer Society, and a fellow of the Higher Education Academy, the UK, during the year of 2020 to 21. He has been serving as a vice chair of the Intelligent System Application and Brain Informatic Technical Committee of the IEEE Computational Intelligence Society, a member of the IEEE CIS Task Force on Intelligent System for Health, and advisor of IEEE Audit Humanities Activities Subcommittee, the publication chair of the IEEE UK Ireland Industry Application Chapter, and the project liaison officer of IEEE UK and Ireland Site Committee. He has also served as the coordinating chair of the local organization of the IEEE WCCI 2020, the general chair of DI 2020-21, and AII 2021, and the program chair of IEEE CICARE 2020 and 21. He served as a selection editor for Cognitive Computational Journal and associate editor of the Frontier in Neuroscience and Big Data Analytics Journal, and a regional editor for a Brain Informatics Journal. Now, I will request Dr. Mahmood to deliver his keynote speech. Sir, now you can continue.
Okay, thank you very much for the kind introduction. And I would like to thank Dr. Jyoti and Dr. Showman for their invitation to deliver this keynote in this second international conference on human-centric computing, human-centric smart computing, sorry. So without further ado, well, because we are already slightly delayed than what I anticipated, I'm going to start the presentation. So can I share my screen?
Yes, sir. Yeah, yes, sir. You can share your screen.
Let me know if it is visible.
Yes, sir. It's visible.
Okay, so the thing that I'm going to talk about today is about early detection of Alzheimer's disease, because we know that, well, Alzheimer's is one of the global burdens. Well, we are going to get into the details of that. However, well, whenever we are talking about human-centric computing, and in the human-centric computing, what we would like to keep in our mind is that, well, the computational methods or the techniques that we are aiming to develop should be considering human in the loop, and should be considering for the benefit of the human. So the outline is going to be very briefly. I'm going to deliver or show the funders who have been funding this research, because we all understand that the kind of research that we do without the financial support, we are unable to carry out our research. Then the motivation why this kind of research is needed, is timely. It's why is it important? Then the Alzheimer's disease and how can we deal with it? And then there are two approaches that we are going to mention. And finally, we are going to discuss about some of the challenges. So most of the research that I'm going to present here are funded by the European Commission. Okay, so the 7th framework program under the European Commission. So it is known as FP7, then the Marie Curie Action. Then there is the Horizon 2020 program, and there are a couple of local funders in Italy. So because a number of this work it initiated during my PhD when I was in Italy, around 15 years ago, in 2008. So there is the Fondazione Casa di Risparmio di Padova e Rovigo and the University of Padua. Of course, in terms of the universities, a number of different universities have been involved during this particular process, starting with the University of Padua, then Jahangirnagar University in Bangladesh, University of Antwerp in Belgium, University of Stirling in the UK, and well, currently Nottingham-Trent University here in the UK as well. So why do we need early detection of Alzheimer's disease? Now, I'm a very big fan of this particular picture, this particular image here, which clearly indicates the aging process. And it is also something which very closely relates to how we see the situation of the trees in the Western world over the years. For example, during the summer, which is at the peak, or from the spring towards the summer, the trees are full with leaves, with life, it's green. And gradually, as we approach the winter, the leaves, they lose their color, they turn from green to yellow to red, and eventually they fall off. So our human life is something very similar in the sense that, well, when we are young, we are going towards our childhood to our teenagers, our young life, and gradually as we are heading towards our elderly life, well, we also experience a very similar thing in terms of our abilities to retain our brain cells. And these are some stats and some projection regarding the Alzheimer's patients. Okay, so in 2010, the Alzheimer's patients were around 35 million. However, well, by 2020, it has increased to 41 million, over 41 million, and the projection is that by 2050, it's going to go to 106 million. So this number is very, very rapidly increasing. Therefore, well, there should be mechanisms or at least ways to prevent or to support the people who are having this kind of disease. Now, as I mentioned, that this is a global burden. So the Alzheimer's mortality rate has increased by 38% between 1990 and 2019. And the global cases are estimated to increase from, as I mentioned, 57.4 million in 2019 to between 130 to 175 million in 2050. And each year, an estimated of 10 in every 100,000 individuals develop dementia with early onset, that is prior to reaching their age of 65. This corresponds to 350,000 new cases in early onset dementia every year. And this number, it is going to increase exponentially over the years. Also, if we take a close look at the burden in the UK, okay, because, well, taking into consideration the fact that I am living in the UK currently, okay. So in the UK, as you can see, that in England, it has got the highest prevalence, which is 85%. So Nottingham is in England. So if I am sure that you might be aware that UK is a country that consists of 4 individual countries inside. So that there is England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. So within these 4, England is the one which has got the highest percentage of people with dementia, 85% of the total number. And, well, even if we take a close look into the different regions in the UK, so I currently am in East Midlands, okay? So you can see that East Midlands as a local region also is having a very high prevalence of people with dementia. And as you can see that, well, the global cost, if the local cost within the UK, if we consider, well, it has got a very huge number of cases and the cost. So it is something which is of interest and timely research here within the context of the UK. Now, if we take a look at the life cycle of Alzheimer's disease, okay. So it starts with the preclinical Alzheimer's disease. So at that time, no symptoms, and there might be some possible biological changes that happens in the brain. Then that leads to the mild cognitive impairment, and this is due to the changes that are happening in the brain. And, well, during that time, very mild symptoms they start appearing, but they may not be interfering with everyday activities. So people do not 100% realize that what is going to what is happening. And then this mild AD causing slight dementia. So this might slightly interfere with some daily activities, and these symptoms start coming out. And this dementia is again because that, while this mild Alzheimer's disease is converted into moderate, so then they start interfering many everyday activities. And eventually, well, the severe Alzheimer's disease causes severe dementia, and well, the most of the daily activities are then hampered. Now, if we can, let's say that detect the Alzheimer's disease at the earliest onset, for example, here, the statistics and the current data that we have shows that the disease can be delayed by as many as 15 years. So now you think that, well, if we are living like on an average 70 years, let's say, so if we can delay disease by 15 years, that is like a lifetime. So we can really be healthy for that specific period of life, and this is something which would allow us to have a clear treatment plan. How can we deal with the situation? And of course, it would also allow management of life affairs and to improve the life quality. For example, if someone is having dementia or Alzheimer's disease at the severe stage, suddenly in a family, as you know that, well, the family can be really in distress because they would not be really knowing how to handle the situation. However, well, if people have time in their hands, then they might be able to deal with this situation in a more planned way. And now here comes the involvement of digital technologies that we have been working on. Now, if we take a look at the digital technologies and their availabilities, we can see that since the 2000s, deaths from heart diseases, they have increased by 14%. Now, thanks to the technologies related to heart diseases, so we now can have different heart implants. We have the rings of the hearts, and then we have the artificial valves that can be installed in or implanted in the heart. We have the pacemaker of the heart. So there are a number of different technologies that have come in the market, which allows these heart diseases to be treated significantly, and therefore it is reflected in the decrease of the deaths by 14%. However, now, Alzheimer's disease is one of the neurodegenerative diseases. Other neurodegenerative diseases you might have heard is Parkinson's disease. Now, if we take a look at the neurodegenerative diseases, the deaths from these neurodegenerative diseases have raised by 89%. Now, that is something which is very staggering, which means that, well, people who are having neurodegenerative diseases, we are unable really to treat those people and to give a cure to those people. Therefore, as I mentioned, that this raise is exponential, and to support them, more caregivers are needed. Now, having caregiver is something which is really very difficult, because just think that for one person with Alzheimer's disease, or dementia, if they are forgetting things, you need another person with them all the time. Now, well, even in these countries like UK and USA and all these economically well-off countries, they are having also difficulty to provide a one-to-one caregiver facilities to these people, let alone developing countries like the countries of South Asia. Therefore, well, what we need alternative ways to deal with the situation. Now, how can we actually identify, or what characterizes the Alzheimer's disease or the dementia? So we can see that, well, people would have memory loss. That is something which is biological, we are going to see. And the manifestation of these can be, they find it hard to complete familiar tasks. They struggle to communicate. There is confusion about the time and the place. They are having difficulty in judging things. And they gradually try to withdraw them from social interactions, and the moods of the person can swing from one mood to the other. Now, well, this is what we just mentioned, that we cannot really provide caregiver per person, and therefore what we need is, like, we need to have a separate smart management system which would reduce the dependency to the caregiver, and this is something which can be done taking into consideration that we have a lot of technologies, and thanks to the technological development over the last 10 years, yeah, so we can have the person, and then we can apply different kind of sensors to collect information about the health condition, and then we can apply smart data analysis. Yeah. And that is something which would then lead to an intelligent system, which can then intelligently react based on the insights which is being achieved from the data. Now, in doing that, there are how these intelligent systems can actually then in turn help those people. So here we can see that from the peoples, we are trying to build the intelligent systems. And then also from the intelligent systems, how can we help the people? Then what we can do is we can definitely have the intelligent systems, detect the specific insights from the data, share them with the caregiver, let the caregiver or the doctor be in charge of deciding how the treatment to be led, or how the people actually can be managed to manage their disease. So this is approach one. Now, there is a second approach, which is a direct approach. Of course, well, this does not mean that, well, the intelligence system is going to act by itself. Definitely, this is something which will have to be configured by the doctors and will have to be set up by the doctors with the appropriate treatment plan. But, well, this is a rather direct communication between the intelligence system to support the people. And we would be taking a look, actually, rather the second approach rather than the first one here in this particular presentation. Now, a very quick introduction about the first one is that, well, we have the patients, we sense the data, we then develop different kind of methodologies to detect the anomalies, to understand the different physiological responses, and then also we can send alerts to the caregiver if needed. And eventually that is something which we would be able to then send also to the doctor for management. However, the second approach is particularly interesting because it focuses on the restoring of the situation rather than trying to manage. Yeah. So in the first approach, we are trying to manage the disease. However, in the second one, we are trying to restore the brain functionality so that the disease can in itself be managed. So the person can return to a better quality of life. Now, how do we do that is through the informatics, thanks to the recent developments that are happening in the last few years, that a lot of new methodologies have been developed, and huge development in the neurotechnologies has also been taking place. Therefore, the experimental paradigm of brain-related research has taken a huge shift. Now, what happens here is that, well, we have the brain, yeah. Now we collect data from the brain, and then we have the intelligent methods for analyzing those data. Now, when we analyze those data, then we have specific ways to model those data to mimic the brain functions. And then after we do that, we again update our data acquisition techniques, and then we collect new data, and this cycle goes on. Now here you can see that this particular new experimental paradigm has different disciplines being involved. So we have the data science, AI, and everything in analyzing the data. Then we have computational neuroscience that helps us understanding that how those data can be related back to the brain and its function. And then, well, we have the clinical, experimental, and neuroscience, which then directs that how these new experimental protocols will have to be decided so that we are able to extract the data from the brain, which are very particular or specific to the specific diseases. And the other thing is that, well, thanks to the development of the micro technology in the last few years, okay, so now it allows us to record data from the brain at a number of different resolutions. For example, we can go from recording data from milliseconds to seconds to minutes to hours, okay. And for doing that, we have the different sizes of electrodes. So these electrodes ranges from micrometers to millimeters range. Okay. And well, we can also focus on the specific functionalities of the brain. For example, we can focus on the whole brain through this EEG and MEG. We can focus on the specific layers of the brain. And this is something which is done through something called local field potential signals, multi-unit activities of the brain, and single unit activities of the brain. And then we can even further go down and really specifically try to study individual brains and their synapses and how this communication takes place through techniques like patch clamp. So, well, all these technological advancements and the application of the technologies within the context of neuroscience has really been a game changer and has allowed an interdisciplinary approach to detect the dementia at an earliest onset. Okay, here I have a video. I don't know that well whether when I shared, did I share the sound? Let me just check. Okay, now I think that you should be able to hear.
That was our anniversary, August 31.
Now,
For
let me give
65
a
years,
slight
Levon and Tom Moore have been
introduction about this
inseparable.
video. So here, she is the person who is having Alzheimer's disease, and now they are going to go and get an implant in the brain that would keep her maintain the quality of life.
But when Levon became increasingly forgetful, their doctor confirmed their worst fears.
Yes, Levon, you have Alzheimer's and we can't do anything about it. Well, that's not a satisfactory answer.
Finally, they met Dr. Douglas Shari, who enrolled Levon in a study at the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center. Unlike most Alzheimer's treatments, it wasn't focused on improving memory, but rather functionality.
We don't have a lot to treat with problem solving, making the right decision, using good judgments, planning skills.
So in a medical first for Alzheimer's treatment, wires were surgically implanted into patients' frontal lobes, the region of the brain responsible for those types of executive and cognitive functions. Then a battery pack in their chest sends electrical currents through the wires in a process called deep brain stimulation.
They had increased focus, increased attention.
The study that published online in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease found all 3 patients who received deep brain stimulation slowed the progression of their symptoms, and 2 of the 3 regressed significantly slower than a typical Alzheimer's patient when compared to a matched comparison group, including Levon.
Levon has had Alzheimer's probably longer than anybody else I know, and that sounds negative, but on the other hand, that's good.
3.5 years later, she's still able to play her favorite hymns, and Tom says he'll do whatever he can to keep the music going.
We will be together as long as possible.
Now that is something which is very nice because, well, thanks to the technologies that has been developed in terms of electronics and informatics that has allowed this to happen.
That was our...
Now, well, there is another example, so I'm not going to get into that just because of the conscious of time. So I think that I need to finish in 15 minutes. So there are pretty much quite a few slides to cover actually. So as a part of that, well, we had a couple of European grants, and through those grants, we wanted to develop the next generation of those neuronal probes or the wires that you have seen, because these wires are something which are old, yeah, and they have got a number of different issues or shortcomings, limitations. Therefore, well, we wanted to have two different generations of these neuronal probes. Yeah, that is something at a very high resolution, as you can see that, well, each of these are each black dots that you see are recording sites, which allows recording signal from the brain and deliver stimulations to the brain to fix certain imbalance that is present in the brain. Okay. So they are very high resolution. Now 15 micrometer is like 1/3 of one of the hairs, as you can see. One of the person's hair is about several So, well, it is going to be less than 1/3. So because here is around 100 micrometer, okay? So this is something which is quite small, okay? Now, what we wanted to do is we wanted to test these specific probes on animal models to make sure that they record signals at a very high resolution. We used anesthetized rats to record those signals. And what we did was, like, we placed these neuronal probes in a specific area of the brain. And as you know that the rats have, or any of the rodents, they have got their whiskers on the snout, and these whiskers act as their hands for sensing things, okay? Like the way we use our hand for haptic signals, okay, for feeling the touch and the sensation. Similarly, well, they use their whiskers for feeling the sense of the touch. So what we did was, like, we, in a very controlled way, we moved these whiskers, okay, through a piezoelectric bender and then a complicated recording setup. And then, well, we recorded the signal from the relevant area. Then we pre-amplified that system, amplified the system, converted the analog data to the digital format, and then saved in the computer. Now, what you can see here is something like this. That here, let me show this video. That let me just say that this is the time domain video that you can see. That, well, it is how the data is acquired from one of these electrodes. Okay, one of these electrodes in the time series fashion. And on the three-dimensional space, you can see here, okay? So there are 16 by 16 electrodes. So the whole electrode map can be seen here, that how signal amplitudes recorded by each of these electrodes at this specific time instance is seen here. And that specific three-dimensional photo has been flattened to a two-dimensional one, just to see that how the recorded electrodes are recording the current status of the brain in that region. Okay, it is like having a high resolutional picture or image of the brain at that particular stage. Okay, now one thing that I want to remember is that when these kind of probes are implanted in the brain, what happens is that they try to go at a single cell resolution, and then that would allow you to really understand that how each of these brain networks or the neurons in the network are communicating with each other. So here, as you can see that, well, this is the place where we deflected the whisker, we moved the whisker, and then we can see that there was a propagation of signal from one side of the brain to the other. And this is something which is very interesting. That will, let me just bring it back here. And as you can see that the signal, it is starting from somewhere here in the left. Okay, so it is starting from the left, and gradually the signal is propagating. Okay, so as you can see here, towards the right, okay, towards upper left. Okay, so it is starting from the lower right, and it is propagating towards the upper left. And this is something which is very interesting, which would allow us to really understand the dynamics of the brain, and accordingly, based on the information that we would get from those dynamics of the brain's communication, we would be able to devise a specific treatment needed to fix if there are any problems in the brain for that. And for doing that, well, we recorded those signals, okay, from mouse models, okay, and these mice, they already had Alzheimer's disease, okay, so we recorded signals from their hippocampus. And this is the hippocampus, okay, one particular area of the brain. So we implanted those electrodes, and we recorded signals from them. So this is how the signals look like, okay. And what we then try to do is we along with the brain signal, we also acquire their electrocardiogram signal and the respiration signal to make sure that they are doing good. Now here, what you can see is that, well, in the signal that we have acquired, we have different type of components present in that signal. Okay, so there are something which is known as the slow oscillations, and then there are the theta, beta, slow gamma, fast gamma, and the epsilon. So there are different. It can be divided into different frequency ranges, and these frequency ranges are known for contributing to how actually brain communicates with the different regions available. So as I mentioned that while we have these slow oscillation, so now these kind of slow oscillations are very closely connected to deep sleep. So when we go into deep sleep, then our brain actually discharges itself through these slow oscillations. Then we have theta waves, which are connected to deep meditation, light and REM, rapid eye movement sleep regions. And then we have between that alpha waves, which are indicative of awake and people when they are awake but they are relaxed. Okay, then we have beta waves, which are awake and normal alert condition, okay, which are between 10 and 25 hertz. Then we have gamma waves. Within the gamma waves, you have slow gamma and fast gamma, which is very much related to perception. Okay, and then we have the epsilon waves, which are between 90 and 190 hertz, which has got a very specific key role in the memory function. That is one of the reasons that we had to actually extract the different components of the signal from the local field potential signal that we had recorded. Okay, now when we run a specific different types of analysis, and here we saw that there are 3 types of animal models. Okay, so wild type is the animal which did not have any disease at that stage. Okay, and then there are 2 different types of animals, specifically this PS2-APP that you can see is the one which is having the Alzheimer's disease. Okay, so here what we try to do is like we try to study the signal at the higher frequency level, and we can see that between those areas towards the tail there is a very specific difference in the frequency distribution, and this is something which is seen in the beta range. So as you can see that, well, this is something which already allows us to study that, well, this is something which happens in the awake and normal alert or conscious status. So well, we can see that already there are specific differences in that particular range itself. And whenever we try to take a closer look into the different specific bands of signals there, so we can see that there is a significant difference between the healthy and the Alzheimer's disease patient. So as you can see that, well, the numbers, they differ quite significantly, the frequency, the power of those specific frequency bands. And when we try to plot them, okay, so we can see that in a specific animal which does not have any Alzheimer's disease, this is how the network should look like. Okay, however, well, whenever we have well, let me just mention that this is the 3 months when the animal is 3 months old. This is when the animal is 6 months old. So as you can see that there are some progressive change in the brain. Okay, as the brain gets older. However, what we can see that in the 3 months age, in the Alzheimer's patient, we can see a huge difference in the network activities, how the network is here in this particular 3 months age. However, the point here is to consider is that, well, when the brain gets older, well, though the disease persists, however, because the brain is a plastic thing, which means that it tries to compensate for some deficiencies. Then it tries to recover that. However, this does not mean that the disease has gone away. What has happened is that the disease symptoms have been suppressed here, and this is one of the regions that we need to identify the disease at the earliest possible, because at this stage it is easier to understand or identify the disease from the recorded signals. However, then it goes in a hidden state and remains in a hidden state, doing severe damages in the brain. And then when it already, let's say, shows the different symptoms, that time it has been already too late to treat the disease or to delay the disease. Okay. This is why, well, our methodology that we have developed allows us to identify the disease as early as 3 months in the animal rats, which corresponds to the first 1 or 1.5 years of the disease's onset in human. Okay, now for doing this, what we need is a lot of intelligent processing, because a huge amount of data is actually acquired during this, and we have developed a specific pipeline that allows the data acquired from the brain, and then that is being transferred to a cluster and run analysis, run parallel analysis there, and then transfer the results to the user. Everything which happens in the cloud, and then of course, well, we need to do this in a through distributed computing in a parallel way, so that we can really have results in almost, if not real time, in semi-real time. Okay, now just to mention a few challenges, okay, mainly focusing on the data analysis. Okay, so we have some soft models, okay, and we also have some cloud-based models which are working perfectly fine. However, if we would like to really bring them into the real life analytics, what we need really is to bring these into the portable devices, which means that we need to have a lot of pre-trained models, okay, which can be reduced or which can be shrinks to be less computationally expensive, so that they can be installed on portable devices for doing the analysis at the real time. So this is a huge challenge, and a lot of work needs to be done in this particular point. And of course, the similar thing goes to the hardware implementation. So it's not only the soft model running on a specific hardwares, but also we need real hardware implementation, so that the hardware itself can perform the analysis at the sensor level itself, so that it can become an integrated device. Okay, so of course, well, these are the areas where I think that there is a lot of effort needed, yeah, from the community, so that we can have smart AI-enabled devices that would allow to improve the quality of life of people who are having some disease or in stressed situation. Okay, so what is the future with these neurotechnologies? Well, we can really play around, and we can also develop develop systems to intelligently control the brain function. Just a quick example to finish this off. So here is an example which is called a T-maze example. Let me just T-maze experiment. Let me just explain this experiment. So this is a T-maze because, well, the road here or the setup here appears like a T. So as you can see that this animal is implanted with the chip that I have just shown you, yeah. And then there is a software system which allows controlling specific stimulations to the brain. So when this L button is pressed, the stimulations are provided so that the animal receives the feedback that it needs to go to left. And then whenever there is the right button will be pressed, the animal will receive the stimulation that it needs to go to right. Okay, so let us just very quickly see that. Well, now the left button is pressed, so the animal went to left. So let's just fast forward a little bit. So again, as you can see that the left button is being pressed, the animal is going again to left. Sorry. And now we will see that the right button will be pressed. So the animal is going to right. So another example here is that, again, here you can see that the animal is going right as a result of the pressing of the right button. And then, well, just the last one, well, again, the right button is pressed, it is going to right. So what the message here is that it is possible to deliver very specific stimulations to the brain through the devices that are being presented there. And well, this, if we would like to automate this whole system, we would need to have intelligent models, and a huge amount of effort needs there for developing these intelligent soft systems that can be used on portable devices or on hardware. So with this, I would like to thank again the organizers for the opportunity to share some of my research experiences here. Okay. And if there are any questions, I'll be very glad to answer them now.
Thank you, sir, for your very informative session. And I'd like to ask from the audience, is there any question from your side? You can write down in the chat box also. So till then, I have one question from you. Like we are using the gamma and beta signals. So what are their active role, basically in which part of the mind we are actually applying the gamma and beta signal? Is there any specification you are identify? And if there are any active role of gamma and beta signals, then what are the transition effect of that?
So, well, as you know, that brain is a very complex system. Okay, so when, for example, as human, we do not only, just to give an example, we do not only talk. We are talking, we are seeing, we are moving our hands. At the same time, we are listening, we are aware of our situation. So all these specific things, they usually are handled by different regions in the brain. Okay. Now, because they are handled by different regions of the brain, there is a very fine-tuned, let's say, coordination among these different brain regions, okay, the exchange of information that allows all these things to happen so seamlessly, okay, so smoothly.
Okay, so
Now,
just like we are taking here only the Alzheimer disease, right? So after the result which you gain from the practical done, is there any other disease which can also be like correlate?
of course, well, what I can point out here is that because, well, we are having in human brain there are around 50 different parts, okay. So for this Alzheimer's disease, what we did was like we were recording signal from a specific area of the brain, which is known as the hippocampus. Okay, because this hippocampus is one of the areas in the brain that is responsible for memory and cognitive functions. And because, well, that is the early storage of memory. And if there is any decline or anything unusual there, okay, so it starts from there. That is why what we try to do is we try to record the signal from there and then try to see that how the network is disrupted at that particular region of the brain. So if you can see that things are disrupted there, which means that, well, there is something unusual happening there. Okay. Now, taking that into the next diseases, what we can do is that, well, there are different techniques through which we can really know that which kind of diseases hamper which particular brain regions. Okay, so if we can, let's say, target those regions and then can record those signals from those regions, these specific techniques can also be applied to those disorders as well.
Okay, so I think I will get the answer from your side. So is there any question from the audience side? So I will, if it is possible, you can reply by the email if I post you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
okay.
No problem.
So
Yeah, of course.
So
Dr. Jyoti and Dr. Soman, well, they have my email IDs and everything. They can definitely get in touch if there are any curiosities from anyone.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for this informative session. We are very pleasure to have you here. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much again. Yeah.
Sir, thank you very much for the insightful lecture. We are really very much thankful for our organizing point of view. Really, it is a human-centric computation-related speech, and we do believe that as the participant of this conference will greatly enrich from your lecture. Thank you so much. I know that you have a really very busy schedule. From that, you have managed to deliver the keynote session for this conference. So we are really thankful to you.
It is always a pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me. Yeah, well, I look forward to contributing even in the future editions. Thank you.